We want to thank you all for coming to the National People's Power Assembly. And for that, you ought to give a round of applause for being here today for the National People's Power Assembly. And I think that Baltimore is definitely a city that is worthy to conduct such a meeting. We've had a host of different struggles here in Baltimore in relationship to a variety of different issues that will be discussed today. Oftentimes what we find is that the same neighborhoods, the same community, the same people that are devastated by police brutality are oftentimes the same neighborhoods that see issues in relationship to crime. They see recreation center closing, they see library closing. And even as we come to this city that is increasingly becoming the police brutality capital of the country, we've got the Anderson family who is here today. We want to recognize them.
You know, the unfortunate thing about Mr. Anderson is that the day that he was killed, he was on his way back to his mother's home. On his way back to his mother's home. Because they were getting things together to celebrate the birthday of his granddaughter. Right here. Right here. This is my thing.
Thank you very much.
Brother Yim was in West Baltimore, and a police officer sat in his cruiser and shot through a rolled up window 4 times out into the general public. He said Brother Yim was waving knives in the air. The only problem with that is that Brother Yim was partially handicapped on one whole side of his body. We have Marcella Holloman who is here. When she called the police, and we find this all the time, when she called the police, she clearly expressed that her son was having some emotional challenges. But as opposed to coming with some sort of non-lethal weaponry to address the issue in a diplomatic way, a way that would be healthy for both him and the police, they came in the house with their hands on their guns, prepared to fire. And indeed, that's exactly what they did. And they killed this man right there in his house, in the presence of his mother and in the presence of his sister.
And now that I'm supposed to be having this PST, the post-trauma, whatever that people have that when they go off the war, and I ain't going to no war. I'm right in my house. So I shouldn't have to call 911 and watch them kill my son in my house. My son was a victim. So how did the victim become a criminal?
And we talk so much about military service being something that's honorable and reparable. That's what they say to us. But I would submit to you that Rudy Bell was a member of the United States military. The police came into the vacant home where Mr. Bell lived. And that was his home. That was his home because there are far too damn many vacant and abandoned properties in cities across this country that should be transformed into housing for homeless people. So that was his home. And the police bombarded their way. They burst their way into his home. And they killed Mr. Bell. Now, the only people that were there to serve as witnesses was Mr. Bell, who's now deceased, and the police. But would you believe that in the police report they said that Mr. Bell had either a knife or a bottle? The police report said he had a knife or a bottle, and we were supposed to be gullible enough to believe that. We didn't believe it. We continued not to believe it. We are sick and tired of being sick and tired of having young black men, poor people continue to be harassed by the police. And the National People's Power Assembly, that's what this is about. It's about owning our power as average, everyday people coming together across jurisdictional lines. Sometimes we suffer in silos, but today we are coming together. We are strategizing together so that we can create a plan for 2013 so that we can fight back together. Because we believe in power being for the people.
What type of monster is capitalism? What is this? And it's rolling, and it's getting bigger, and it's bigger, and it's bigger. The prisons is privatized. What does that mean, a prison being privatized? If you have a privatized prison, you better trust and believe they're gonna fill it up with your children.
Yeah.
Say it, tell it.
I represent almost 1,500 men and women that we've trained for construction jobs in this city. And to give you kind of an overview of how bad the problem is, we've been training people for 2 years. 1,500. And all you have to do is step outside these doors and you'll see a crane operating in this city somewhere.
That's right.
Out of 1,500 men and women, Baltimore City residents, out of 1,500 in 2 years, all the development going on, 3 men and women have been hired. 3.
This grew out of the Trayvon Martin demonstration, where there were 10,000 people who took over City Hall and held the City Hall, people that were here know it, for 4 straight hours and shut downtown Baltimore down. Gave us a tiny, tiny glimpse into what we could do if the people were mobilized, whether we could take City Hall over and run it. Now, we're not pretending that we're at that juncture right now, but that's what we're talking about when we're talking about people's power. And that is, how can we build a movement that can force the hand of those who run this country, dismantle them and get rid of them totally. And I tell you, it is possible, and the Trayvon Martin demonstration gave us just an insight, a little insight into that. Our fight has to be a national fight. We cannot be isolated in this city. It cannot be, left alone, and we want some national attention. A brother has come all the way from Los Angeles. We have New York, North Carolina. Stevie asked me to repeat this. We have Philadelphia, we have Delaware, we have Washington, D.C., we have Virginia, we have Frederick, Maryland, and of course we have Baltimore City. And
You see the hundreds of millions of dollars they spend on the Inland Harbor? It costs $200,000 to keep a recreation center open a year. And how are we going to keep it open? Is if the community rises up and you take it over and you seize it. When they want to close down your schools or your firehouses, the community rises up and they seize it. We have a right to it. We built it. It wasn't the Mellons and the Carnegies that built. If you watch the History Channel, you might think that they built this country, but they didn't. It was the people who were enslaved and indigenous people who had their whole tribes and nations destroyed and conquered and genocide committed against them, and the workers that came after that built this society. Not the rich. We cannot let them have it. If they are waging war against us, we don't just lay down and let them roll over us with a tank. We stand up and we fight back. Are you ready to do that? Have you had enough of somebody shooting down your siblings and your family members and your next door neighbors in the street? Have you had enough of them closing your children's schools? Are you ready to fight and struggle and to win? We celebrate Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Harriet Tubman and all the great Fannie Lou Hamer and all the great leaders because they gave their blood for the struggle. And it is time for us to do it. And the way to do it is to build people powers assemblies at every level and to connect it to a national movement. And I dream of the day that we can go to Washington, D.C. and reignite the dream, the last dream that Martin Luther King Jr. dreamt.
In high schools across the nation, and in my hometown of Raleigh, North Carolina, mass numbers of suspensions and the criminalization of poor black youth has manifested itself in the school-to-prison pipeline, where zero-tolerance policies push children out of the classroom and funnel our youth into prisons at disturbingly high rates. Though black students only account for 17% of national public school enrollment, in the most recent data we have, black students account for 34% of suspensions.
There's a war on children. Where's CNN in Baltimore?
That's right.
Doing 24-hour coverage about these young people whose life has been snatched from them by racist police. What hypocrisy. All of the programs that are supposed to help young people, whether it's higher education, whether it's elementary school, high school, they're all being cut. Schools are being closed. What hypocrisy. Nutrition programs are being cut. Food stamps. Lunch programs. It's times like this that we have to remember the truth. The biggest killer of children, not only here but around the world, is capitalism. It's the poverty and hunger, the lack of health care, the lack of clean water. And if we're honest, we have to say that Martin Luther King's dream has become a nightmare. Global capitalism is a nightmare for most of the people, for most of the living things on this planet. That's right. No matter where they are. On every level imaginable. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare for the unemployed, whose numbers have swelled. It's a nightmare for young people. It's a nightmare for immigrants, who if they can't find a job or not being lynched, or being arrested and dragged off to prison and then deported. It's a nightmare for those workers in Michigan and workers all over the country who are suffering under a banker-driven, union-busting reign of terror. I believe in the final analysis it's up to us to turn this anniversary, 50th anniversary of this big march and that wonderful speech, to make that legacy come alive again. In New York, we're thinking about a tribunal to try those who are responsible for not coming to the rescue of the victims of Hurricane Sandy. Yeah. It's not as bad as Katrina, but it's pretty bad, and people are still suffering today. I think it would be a good idea to get 2013 started. It's only in a few weeks. Started by looking at those king holidays and proclaim those days defend workers and poor people's rights. That would be a fit way of beginning to commemorate this 50th anniversary. That would be the right way to do it. And by doing it, if we can, on that Monday, the same day of the inauguration, to defend workers and poor people's rights, to demand that a job at a decent wage with a union be a right, and that our youth should be entitled to jobs and not jail cells, and that we all should have the right to health care and pensions and housing, decent affordable housing and everything we need. This would be a fit way of opening up this 50th anniversary of that great march that was such an important landmark in the civil rights movement.
It's time for the poor people to stand up and demand an end to capitalism once and for all. Capitalism is the enemy of all poor and working people.
We made a promise that we're still built, the mic is still open, and I can't sing, but we made a promise to sign. Shayla, you want to come up here? Did you want to say anything? No. Okay. Happy birthday to you. Come on. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to
you. My former barber was found hanging from a tree. They said it was suicide. I began to investigate. No one in the community believed it was suicide.
Most folks think that police brutality only happens in Baltimore, Compton, Philadelphia, New York, all the major cities. But police brutality happens all over America. Police terror everywhere.
There's a seed of violence sown, and a lot of that starts with violence with the state. A lot of that starts with the promotion of violence in our media, particularly to our young people.
The secret to this is understanding that this isn't just you that's happening to. It's everybody. And I'm saying the example of what happened in Connecticut, and you know, it's been happening, you know, Holloman, all these other places. That mentality is American as apple pie. Where do you think they got that bullying tactic? I can't have my way. I'll kill your mother. I'll kill your father. I'll kill your children. That's what each of them did. Where's that example from? The bombing in Palestine, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Vietnam, North Philly, South Philly, West Philly, down Baltimore, all over. But I'm saying they haven't won. Their victory is when we stop. But we won't stop. That's right. Workers' World is an example. The MOVE organization is an example. But I'm not here to talk about that. The example is here. I'm here trying to bring people in and make you understand. Brother, sister, you talking about killing? These monsters killed 11 men, women, and children of my family. I was beat in jail, beat out of jail, had a leg broke, head split open, teeth kicked down my throat, my family bombed. They murdered 11 of them, but you know one thing? I must fight. You cannot give up the fight. You cannot give up the fight. They want to make you feel as though they're winning. Example, Mumia and Booth Jamal. Mumia and Booth Jamal. And what the people united did, the people marching on this day when they try to throw that fear into us. They try to throw that fear into us by calling on the Army and the Navy and whatever other forces they had. Ridge was up there taking his little vows and stuff. They was reading them, and all of a sudden you heard the words. And they say death row, we say hell no. You can hear it coming. First you can hear the beat. Boom, 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 boom. And then you know, you can see the cameras getting jittery, right? And no, they wasn't getting jittery. They was trying to figure out, what am I going to cover? What am I going to cover? Our job is to cover the power. Our job is to cover something new. Revolution is coming on down the street. The white nuns were saying, they say death row, we say hell no. The black folks were saying, the poor folks were saying, the workers were saying, the people with money, the people with no money. They were all saying, damn it, here we are. You say death row, we say hell no. It wasn't just for Mumia, it was for the all, because that's what we did in organizing. We organized, we united the people. And I'm saying, right there by our side, whenever you see magnificent marches, you better turn around and look, and you'll see them there. People be saying, I was looking around, and they were there all the time. On the move, long live revolution, let's tear this mother.
He is from Rockford. Tommy's from Rockford, Illinois. He came 16 hours on a bus.
I want to welcome up Tom Dodge from the Postal Workers, leading the fight to save the post offices.
Right now, in Congress, trying to pass another law to cut back service to 5 days a week and take away the union bargaining rights of 500,000 postal workers across this whole country. What happened in Wisconsin, what happened in Michigan, it's just a drop in a bucket compared to what's getting ready to happen here in the next week. And they are attaching this to the Hurricane Sandy relief bill. They know nobody's going to vote against that, so they will ram this right down our throats. What are we doing about this? We heard this last week that they're trying to ram this through in Congress. We're setting up an emergency encampment starting on Monday at 9 a.m. at Lafayette Park across from the White House. We will be there 24 hours a day for the next 6 days, protesting and having hunger strike part 2. People coming in from all across the country.
Free our post office.
I'm fighting for not only myself, but for the future of your children, your grandchildren, and my grandchildren, so that they won't be getting underpaid. And they always talking about they don't have any money here, but yet they're still building a new jail to put our children in. Why don't they take that money and pay somebody to mentor these kids or build a rec center where they can stay off the street? But instead, they'd rather just put them in jail.
No human being is illegal. No worker is illegal. And it should be racism and union busting. And it should be the corporations like Exxon that pollute our air and force these catastrophes on us. That's what should be illegal. No one wants to leave their home if they don't have to. They are forced to come here, risking their lives, crossing that bloody, militarized goddamn border because of NAFTA, because of U.S. economic and foreign policies. It is because of the U.S. government and Washington that forces workers to come here. And when they want cheap labor, they say, come on. But when there's an economic crisis like we are facing today, that's when they want to get rid of workers. PPA is saying every single one of these struggles has to be connected. It can't just be mass incarceration. It can't just be immigration. It just can't be students. It just can't be labor. It has to be all of us together demanding our rights. Demanding our rights. And that's what's going to win things. We've got to bring down this system. There's no other solution. But in the meantime, we need the PPA to be fighting for legalization, to be fighting against mass incarceration. And imagine if we can join the struggle of the workers at Walmart or McDonald's, 2 places that for years the union movement and others said you could never organize at McDonald's or at Walmart. But lo and behold, Black Friday was a day when workers came out. If we could win a union at Walmart, if all of us get behind this fight, if all of us get behind the fight to organize workers at McDonald's, it'll be a new day. And that's what the PPA is all about. Move towards having the 50th anniversary of King's March. I'll be there. We'll bring the May 1st Coalition with us. But I want to propose that we also make May Day next year a day when the People's Power Assembly, a day when we are marching in our interest.
Eddie Conway has been in jail for 43 years. April 23rd will be 44. There is no reason for anyone who has came and stood for us and has not done anything but be targeted by COINTELPRO. He was unjustly incarcerated. There was no crime that he had committed, and he's still there. We have a lot of work to do. Yes. Like the sister was saying, there's a movement now afoot to build a children's prison here. We already have a detention center down here on Gage Street with a court that's attached to it. They just take children from the court to the little detention jail center, from the court to the detention jail center. Now they want to put a full-fledged prison. In my neighborhood right here, over in the Patterson Park area, we had a school over here, and they closed the school down about 4 years ago, claiming that there was no reason for this school to be in existence, even though it was full with children, and the neighborhood needed it because it was in such bad shape that they couldn't put the money into it to do anything better, but it was safer for the children to close it down. That they closed it down, but right now they're building condos.
Notice how the cops, around you go to a demonstration, and the same tactic they're using on the West Coast, they're using simultaneously on the East Coast. They're centralized, they're organized, they know what to do. They take notes, exchange notes, and we gotta be organized just like they are.
We got our workers here, we got Alan, Ms. Barbara, and Ms. Cindy. I'm going to turn it over to her. She's going to give you some information about Walmart, and then a little bit of information about our Walmart, and I'm sure she's going to thank you for your support, so hold on.
Thank you, Don. And I have to thank all of UFCW and all their help that they've given us and all the people across the country, because we've had a lot of support. We went on strike on Black Friday. We walked out, but we walked out October 9th first. And if they get mad at you, they just won't put you on the schedule at all. You may get 8 hours in 1 week. You know you can't feed your family on that. Not at all. Let alone get health care. Okay, and Walmart has no qualms by the time you go to the state and get you know, whatever you can from the state. But how's that right? So in other words, we work for Walmart, we pay taxes, and then our taxes that we pay have to help us make ends meet at the end of the week. It's not fair. Walmart is more than in our country. And I have to speak of this today because it's really in my heart heavy, that the Bangladesh workers that were killed 14 days ago, 112 of them, I met 2 of those workers. We went on a troop tour together in the United States here to shed light on what goes on over there. Those people didn't have to die. Walmart knew of the conditions since 2009. They decided not to sign the paper to make it a better industry. Okay, and that just hurts me. You had to lose those lives? Come on, over some money. So Walmart's selling cheap goods, but at what price to us?
Walmart's management does any and everything that they can and get away with it. And if it's not for our Walmart forcing their hand, we wouldn't have made the strides that we've made thus far at Walmart. Okay, we're just trying to make Walmart a better company, respect their workers, to give them a decent wage so that you can live.
Cindy said, we got to stand together. Because together, we can tear down mountains. We can tear down.
That's right.
We can hit Pharaoh, okay?
Come on now.
But we're not together. We can do it.
I was looking at your literature, Our Walmart, A Year of Action, and we concluded with the same thing at the People's Assembly. We wanted to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Movement with just what you're doing, frankly. And there was a concrete resolution that on Dr. King's birthday holiday, that we have a workers' rights and poor people's rights actions across the country. And we should honor the Walmart workers and make you really a big piece of that in terms of our demands. The one thing I will say about Baltimore is really we're a city of no-wage workers and low-wage workers. So what happens to you is unbelievably crucial to what happens to all of us.
I think it's great that the UFCW is undergirding this effort with the Our Walmart, because that partnership is the type of partnership that we need in all of our enterprises across this country. And I want to say that it's critical that we develop these type of relationships, because there's always been a historic relationship between union and the activist community, and we need to continue that, because what we have are the same exact people who are suffering from low wages, are in neighborhoods where their schools are getting shut down and their recreation centers are closing, and they're going through all sorts of hell and atrocities. So